You're listening to the Mind Your Business podcast. Today, we're talking to one of our listeners, Evelyn Hitzman, and we're addressing the question, who do you trust for new information? So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and I've built a 7-figure internet business that offers the financial freedom to do what I want, when I want. And I'm the first to say that hard work and hustle are not essential ingredients for your success. So, how do you build a thriving business from the inside out? This is the Mind Your Business podcast, featuring myself and co-host Phoebe Mroczek. All right. James Wedmore here.
And I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
And this is one of our listener questions of the week. So before we get into today's question, I just want to thank everybody for listening, supporting the podcast, and all the people who submitted a question. This is a really fun segment we wanted to do so that we could keep this very casual, very short, and make sure that we're delivering content that you guys all want answers to, or at least any type of advice or input on, right? So this week's question of the week comes from Evelyn Hitzman. Now, Phoebe, you actually know Evelyn, right?
I do. I didn't before the podcast, but now I do.
So you're basically telling me that this podcast is helping you make friends.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Why do you think
perks.
I signed up for it, right?
The many perks of podcasting.
Right. Well, actually, Evelyn is one of our listeners, and she was telling me, or she sent me a Facebook message saying that we were really the reason that she got into manifesting and law of attraction. And our episode on law of attraction was the first she had ever really heard of the law of attraction. So through our episode, she started kind of doing some experiments, and she wanted to go to this visual storytelling event here in San Francisco. And the next day, she did some manifesting or whatever we told her to do in the episode. And the next day, somebody called her and said, hey, I have 2 free tickets to this visual storytelling event. These tickets are like $1,500.
Wow.
And she sent me a message on Facebook and said, it would only feel right if I gave the extra ticket to you because you're one of the people who actually helped inspire me to actually do this. So I was totally blown away, and I wasn't sure if I should do it or not. And then I was like, you know what? I would love to meet someone that has listened to the podcast that kind of knows a little bit more about me and my personality. We totally hit it off and had a great time. So Evelyn, I know you're listening, and I just wanted to say thank you so much. I really enjoyed getting to know you as well.
So let's go ahead and play Evelyn's question right now.
Hey, Phoebe. Hey, nice to meet you, James. Sorry it took so long to get you guys a question, but you actually ended up answering my original question that I had. So I had to come up with a brand new one over the last week. And my first question had been, how do you plan for your growth, and how do you kind of systematize all the things that you're learning? And then your previous, I think it was 2 episodes ago, you talked to the astrologer about mapping out the lunar calendars and retrogrades. I took that information and I put it into my planner, and it was just like, here's everything you should be doing with your time and when to do it. And it's going to be really easy. So thank you for that information. It took me, like I said, an extra minute to come up with something different to ask you though. So what I've been thinking is, how do you know where to draw the line of information that you're taking in and maybe the things that you share with other people? So how do you know that the people that you're getting information from are trustworthy or going to be good and healthy for your life? And how do you know who to share this information with? Like, which family members or friends? Who do you tell that you're like, I'm manifesting things into my life? Like, that's kind of a weird thing to tell somebody from what I've found, because I've shared some things that people are just like, that doesn't make any sense. You're crazy. I can't believe that's coming out of your mouth. So that's really my question. Just how do you know who's going to be appropriate to get information from? Like, the first thing that I listened to that you guys had recommended was an Abraham Hicks meditation. So obviously the line of like what's acceptable and appropriate is going to be kind of a gray area, and maybe it's different for each individual. But if you guys could help give just any sort of structure or clarity to how do you know who has like good, healthy information and who is maybe kind of like a crazy snake oil salesman? Maybe don't follow that person. That's really my question. I think I kind of know for myself, but maybe it'll be really helpful to just have more of a concrete answer. And hopefully everyone else in the audience listening will get a lot of help from me asking that. Thank you guys so much. Phoebe, keep it cool, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Okay, so thank you, Evelyn, for submitting the video, the audio, the question. We really appreciate it. Now, I heard 2 questions here, right, Phoebe? Mm-hmm. So the first question was really around, who the heck do you trust? You know, in today's age, the information age, well, everyone's the guru, everyone's the expert. You know, obviously, here we are on a podcast giving content and information. So how do you know who to trust and who not to trust was kind of what I heard from Evelyn's first part of that question. So the first thing I want to start with, as, you know, spiritual woo-woo enlightened this sounds, is number 1 is always trust yourself. I think something I've always tried to practice, the muscle I've always tried to build, is trusting my intuition and my gut. And so we have an entire episode dedicated to using your intuition. And one of the things that I have our listeners do in that episode is think back to past events in your life, you know, go into hindsight and just remember if there was some decision you made or a person that, you know, a problem was caused because of that. Did you ever have a bad feeling about that person or about that idea or that decision that you had? And maybe, perhaps maybe that was your intuition kind of just trying to give you a little heads up, a little nudge into a different direction. And I have little hits of intuition all the time. And I think the more we listen to it, the more we trust it. Because you're going to feel like a crazy person. The first, I don't know, I think this, logically this doesn't make sense, but I'm going to do that anyway because it feels right. I think I'm crazy. I mean, that's how you kind of end up when you trust your intuition at first, and then the crazy becomes the new normal, right? Crazy is the new black. So that's step 1, okay? That is step 1. However, with that, I think what Evelyn's asking is a really deep question here, because I think she did that. I think she became very coachable by listening to a podcast with 2 crazy kids talking about how you can close your eyes and visualize and manifest stuff like crazy. And she said, okay, and I'm going to do it. So first off, I really do acknowledge you and thank you for trusting us. But, you know, does that mean you just go out there and trust everybody? I think if we're growing, if we're entrepreneurs and we want to grow, we want to become better, we want to reach more people, we want to become high performance, we have to be willing to be coachable. We have to be open. And a lot of these episodes, we end up talking about things like our blind spots and what's getting in the way and our limiting beliefs. And the problem, you've heard these terms, limiting beliefs, before, but the big challenge that no one really realizes is if it were really a limiting belief, would you know that it's a limiting belief? See, we don't call it a belief, we call it reality, we call it facts. And we let these facts of reality then shape or limit our future. And so I think a lot of people are trapped and don't see these, what we call blind spots. And so in order to get beyond them, to have a breakthrough, to shatter these limiting beliefs or these false realities, at one level, you've got to be coachable. You've got to be willing to do things you've never done before, things that are uncomfortable, uncertain. You got to be able to take advice and take action on that advice. And that can be hard, it can be scary, it can be different, and it takes a lot of trust. So then you got to be like, okay, so who the heck do you trust? And, you know, I don't know. You know, like sometimes it's just trial and error. But I don't know, Phoebe, like, are there certain people that you listen to or books that you read or people that you follow that there are specific reasons as to why you follow them?
So one thing that, well, when I'm listening to different, I don't know, gurus or, you know, industry leaders, it's always whose shoes do I want to be in? So I know that Evelyn and I had kind of bonded in person about this a little bit, that she actually found out about the podcast because, James, she had already heard about you. And I'm not sure if she is a customer of yours, but she's watched some of your YouTube videos. So all of the online videos that you've created helped her really connect with you. And so she believed you as a leader and then was escorted over to the podcast and now is listening to, you know, what you're saying, because I really feel like, you know, she wants to maybe be in the place that you are. And I mean, I have to say I would agree. And when you were the first one to really kind of open me up to this world and, you know, this kind of crazy rabbit hole of spirituality maybe, and it was because I saw what was possible for you. And I knew that if I just kind of blindly trusted you for a little bit, who cares? You know, maybe it would be 4 months of my life where I was hoping and praying and setting reminders on my phone and nothing happened. Or maybe I would have that breakthrough. So yeah. I would say it's really trusting people who you feel have maybe either are where you would like to be at some point or have your best intentions at heart.
Absolutely. And obviously it's hard to tell who does have my best intentions at heart. But if you feel like they do, that's a good start. I think, if it goes back to trusting your gut, you can see some people when they make a video, you're like, oh, something about this person just... Here's the indicator that I look at, and it's time in the marketplace. Time is the ultimate indicator. It's the ultimate indicator. And with things like social media and, two-way communication and review sites and Yelp and, everything else out there, these scam report stuff, a quick Google search, just a little bit more research, and you will find what you're looking for. And, when we go into this law of attraction stuff, you guys know, if you know my story, if you've been listening to this entire podcast, which you should be, then you'll know that, I was very skeptical of manifesting and all this energy work and all this stuff. And I spent years being the scientist. I was like, okay, I'll be open-minded, but I'm not just going to follow blindly. And one of the first teachers online that I follow very closely were Abraham Hicks, which is why we recommend some of those books. I have listened to hours of their videos. I've read every single, or at least 5 of their books. I think I read all of them, and they've come out with one since. And I've gone to a few of their workshops. And for the first, I would say 18 months, I was looking for loopholes. And I wasn't being cynical looking for loopholes, but I was looking for, is there something that I'm going to be able to catch them in, like a lie? And I never found it.
Was there something that maybe somebody had told you and you were trying to find proof, or why were you looking for the loophole, or is that just your personality?
I was looking for the loophole because for 20 some odd years of my life, I was ingrained with the, work hard, money doesn't grow on trees. Life is literally my father, who I love. Obviously, he's my father. He walks around, his mantra, here we have these 77 affirmations. His mantra, I shit you not, is life is tough and then you die.
Oh, God.
And the thing is he says it kind of like jovially, but, he's kind of just joking around when he says it. But he says it every time you see him. Anytime there's something like, tax season comes up, or he's sharing a story of something went wrong, he's like, well, what can I say? Life is tough and then you die. And that's, whether he believes that wholeheartedly or not is another question, but he's saying it and he's out there, and there's always some truth when we say things like that. So I was raised on that. And so when someone comes around and says that the way to life is work less, play more, and go with the flow, and make your dominant intent to be happy and full of joy and bliss first, and then all the things that you said would make you happy when you had them will come in. That we have it backwards. It was so contradictory to what I had been raised, and I'm not alone in this. I mean, most people are nodding their head, that I needed to see that, is this true? And then you throw on top of it that the information that is being told to me is being told by a woman that is saying that she's channeling a being. So on top of that, I'm like, wait, what? Like, what is this like crazy voodoo talk? So I needed to say, is this woman faking this? Is she a fraud? When you realize, like, I'm going back to what my indicator was, time, that it's been like 30 years that this woman has been doing this. I'm sorry, but you can't, and correct me, someone please tell me if I'm wrong here, but find me one person, maybe there's some people in politics, maybe, but find me one person that's doing something like that and can get away with it for 30 years. That's impressive to me. Like, and maybe there are, like I know there are cults and stuff out there that have been around for more than 30 years. We won't get into any of that stuff. But I don't know. I listened, I looked, I was like, come on, is this real? And I finally, after my own investigation, was like, okay, I'm good. I accept it. And then it worked, and I became a scientist to it. And I hope that people can have a little bit more faith in Phoebe and I, in what we're sharing. We're not necessarily like channeling this direct information, but there's a lot of inspired content that comes in. There's a lot of stuff that I've been practicing for years and, taking my own spin on it, on how I've taken this information and used it in business. And I think there are a lot of people that already have a relationship with me that are trusting me. And I don't take that lightly. Like, I really do acknowledge everybody for doing that, for taking action on. I thank you guys.
I think that's why you were so nervous about putting the podcast out.
Yeah, because I spent a lot of time being skeptical about it. And like the biggest advice I've gotten from our listeners who are good friends of mine, like I've had people say, like this is like one of the only podcasts I listen to, and then they give me critique and they're like, dude, you really got to own this more. Like some of this far out stuff that you talk about. While there's other people that are like, will take, they've been following me for years. They have one listen and they're like, dude, this is off the deep end stuff. It's not for everybody, but it worked for me. If I'm that left brain type and I could come around to it, I think other people could as well. But the answer there is time. But there's no guarantee, Evelyn. Like there's going to be people out there that are charlatans, scam artists, and deceivers and all that stuff. And hopefully if you trust your intuition, you'll be able to not cross paths with those people. But here's the other thing. Beautiful thing is that there is a lesson in everything, right? So even if someone does mislead you, like let's say someone tells you there's this course you can buy that can turn your computer into an ATM machine. And if you can click 3 buttons a day, you can make $1 million. Okay, well, you're only going to let that happen to you once before you learn the lesson never to believe in huge money-making. Money's easy falling from the heavens with 3 clicks of a button, right? You're only going to make that mistake once. So even in the cases where someone doesn't have your best interest at heart, there's a lesson available for you. And as we get older, we kind of get wise to those things, right? So that's the first thing. And hopefully that's a good enough answer. But I want to look at the second question because it's a fascinating question. And I'm sure this is really going to resonate with a lot of our listeners. And it's, who the heck do you share this stuff with, right? What do you share and what do you filter? So I want to give my quick answer and then we'll hear what Phoebe has to say on this. But the first thing is like, I think the overarching advice I have for this is don't share the method, share the results, share what you're up to. Okay, so no one who you don't think is going to resonate with visualizations, affirmations, meditating, feng shui and numerology, any of that stuff, that is the method. Those are tools, okay? You don't need to share that with anybody that you don't think is going to already resonate with that. And for most people, no one other than this podcast, like I don't tell anybody about any of my spiritual practices or just manifesting practices. Like I just keep that to myself. However, there is power in sharing. And this is something I've seen an argument for both sides of. And so this is kind of my blending of the both sides. So there are I've read all these books on law of attraction and manifesting, and a lot of people will say, keep it to yourself, don't tell anybody, because the moment you tell somebody, they could pull out the doubt in you, right? Does that make sense? Like they're going to evoke a little bit of doubt in you. Like, oh my gosh, you're a crazy person. Mm-hmm. It's never going to work, right? Okay, so here's something I'm going to offer. The first thing, if you share it with somebody, share the result. This is what I'm up to. This is what I'm creating. This is what I'm excited about. This is my goal. That's it. And if they come back with doubt, then this is an indicator that you had doubt within you, that you actually activated the doubt that they're sharing back to you, because we're just mirrors. Did what I say make sense, Phoebe?
Yeah, definitely. I think we addressed this a little bit in one of the episodes.
We did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I definitely hear, kind of what you're saying about, inciting that doubt of, I know I definitely have been in that situation where I tell somebody something that I'm doing for like a launch or just in my own personal life, and they're like, what? That sounds crazy. And I'm like, does it? I know.
Right.
I thought so too.
So let's say Phoebe wants a new car, right? So that's your goal. That's the thing, whether you're manifesting it. Of course, if we get the car, you manifest it. I don't care what you want to say. You created it. You did that. Okay. So let's, own it, right? But let's say that's your goal. That's what you want. So you start telling a couple people, and the way I would phrase it, Phoebe, is you'd be like, hey, so I want to share something with you. Sure, what's up? And you're like, well, I've been driving the same old beat up car for 5 years now. And you know what gets me really excited? I would love a brand new car. In fact, the car I want, it's a red convertible. I don't know, I'm just making up what kind of car you'd want, right?
Pretty accurate.
Pretty accurate, right? Mm-hmm. And my goal is to get it before the end of summer. And right now I don't know how. And you don't even need to go into that, right? But you just say like, that's what I'm up to right now. Like, that's what I want. So you're just kind of sharing them. You're getting them enrolled. You're getting them like, okay, yeah. And this becomes a litmus test where if they're like excited about it as well, like however they respond is usually like where you're at, right? So if anyone came back and be like, do you really think you could afford that? Do you really think that's the best decision for you right now? They're expressing doubt. And all that means doesn't mean they're a bad friend. That's where people go with it. It just means, and this is hard, but that is an indicator of where you're at vibrationally, right? And if we're manifesting, what we're manifesting comes in when there's no more resistance. And so this is an opportunity to check in and see, do I have any resistance around this? And if you do, you have two options, okay? The first option is to just pick something that you don't have any resistance around and start there. Because this is a muscle, right? I mean, when I was practicing this, I was living in New York, so I was practicing manifesting foreign coins. oh, you start seeing him all the time, like in the weirdest places. Like bump into a guy at a line of pizza shop and he pulls his hand out of his pocket. And I look down his hand like 3 inches like from me. He's standing right next to me. He's got a handful of foreign coins from his pocket. And he's like, what the heck am I going to do with these? He just like turns to me. He's like, what am I going to do with these? Like, that's the type of stuff. I was like, whoa, because I had no resistance around whether or not I was living in New York. Like, there's every culture in the world is living in New York. Like, I didn't have any resistance around that. It was very easy. If I started saying, oh, I want a penthouse, like in, Upper West Side or something, like, yes, I'm going to start coming. Logic's going to take over. Oh, you couldn't afford that, and that's unrealistic, and blah, 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 right? So you start with something that you can get your head and your heart around. But if you're like, no, but I still want this car. Well, you're going to have to find a way. You're going to have to use all the tools, whether it's visualizations, affirmations, going for test drives and just going for a walk and doing all the work to let go of that resistance. And then you just check in and you share it with more people. But there is something magical about sharing the result of what you're up to with others. And so I would actually recommend that. Just, you want to share it with the people that care about you and you care about them, and you don't need to share about all the crazy stuff you're doing behind the scenes in order to get it. We call it stacking the deck, right? So all the things you can do, you want to write it down, you want to daydream about it, you want to meditate, you want to create an affirmation, you want to go for test drives. You do what you got to do. You do what feels right. You do what's fun. You do what works for you. No one else has to know that. So I hope that answers your questions. Yeah. Phoebe,
yeah, I think it's really funny that when I would meet people and they'd be like, oh, you work with James. I'm like, yeah. And they'd be talking about stuff. I'm like, in my head, I'd be like, God, they have no idea that he's, that he has crystals on his desk, or, that he's doing all these things behind the scenes that nobody knows. And that's why I love that we have this podcast as your opportunity to really kind of share your practices with the world and what you're actually doing, but you also have something to back it up. Yeah. So I think that's really cool to like see all these layers being peeled back.
And the thing is like, you don't need any of this stuff. That's the beauty of the Abraham Hicks stuff, is that they even say, like, from affirmations, visualizations, crystals, and essential oils, like all the stuff that's out there, like, you don't need any of that. Their whole message is very simple. It's feel good now, and it will get you access to the things that you want. And then they say, if a crystal helps you feel good, if a crystal or a meditation or a visualization or an affirmation or, whatever helps you release resistance so you feel nothing but joy, bliss, and fun, then do it. So, Evelyn, again, thank you so much for asking the question. And I hope we gave an answer that gives you a little bit more insight and clarity. And at the end of the day, I hope you're trusting your gut and your intuition that this answer felt right for you, that it's going to serve you for your highest good and your highest purpose. That's it.
So if you'd like to be featured on a future episode of the podcast, go over to mindyourbusinesspodcast.com or head over to our show notes to submit your question.
And with that, thank you everybody for listening. If you haven't left a review yet, you can do so now on iTunes. Just head on over to jameswedmore.com/iTunes. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode. Are you frustrated that no matter how hard you hustle, no matter how much you get done in a day, you still feel like you have little results to show for it? Do you feel like you're doing everything right, but there's still something missing? Well, what if there was an easier way? What if your business could be fun, effortless, and profitable? Phoebe and I have put together a free audio MP3 for you, compiling the 77 business affirmations for creating success from the inside out. And we want to give it to you absolutely free. This is your chance to rewire your brain for bigger results in your life and your business. To get instant access absolutely free, simply visit 77affirmations.com. That's the number 77affirmations.com.